Hi guys, my name's Lizzie, I'm an archaeologist and this is my channel, Dig About. Today we're going to talk about Neolithic important landscapes and I'm going to take you guys with me on a road trip to Avebury. The landscape I'm going to take you guys to today is called Avebury and lies in modern-day Wiltshire. The area of Wessex is best known for another important Neolithic landscape. It is home to Stonehenge. In fact, Stonehenge is 28 kilometres away, a 40-minute drive and an 8-hour walk. In Neolithic terms, they were practically neighbours. The Avebury landscape holds so many archaeological sites, not all of which have yet been discovered. Today I'm going to take you along to 6 of these sites. West Kennet Long Barrow, Windmill Hill, the Circle and the Henge, the Sanctuary, Silbury Hill and West Kennet Avenue. Right, let's go! Please like and subscribe. Today we're starting our trip at West Kennet Long Barrow. This structure was built around 3670 BC and is one of the first monuments built within our landscape that we will be seeing today. Long barrows can be found across Britain, but this long barrow in particular is part of a group called the Cotswold 7. The structure was built using local sarsen stone and Neolithic limestone from the Cotswolds. The site saw the burial of around 50 people from between 3670 BC to 3635 BC. Occasional human and animal bones were added to the long barrow, as well as flint and pottery, before the site was permanently closed by these large standing stones. So we couldn't quite make it over to Windmill Hill. It is behind me here upon the horizon, but is an incredibly important site. The enclosure was probably the first structure to have been built here in the landscape, dating to around 3600 BC, and it stayed in use until the late Neolithic, around 2500 BC. The site saw the construction of 3 circular ditches with interval crossing points, giving it the characteristic name causewayed. These were probably designed to keep livestock in and out of the site. The enclosure covered 21 acres on top of the hillside, making it the largest causewayed enclosure in Britain. The finds at the site inform us that it was probably used as either a market where animals were slaughtered and traded, or as a feasting site due to the quantity of animal remains. Other findings were of early Neolithic pottery, flint tools, animal and human remains. Interestingly, within one of the ditches was a complete child burial. The child was probably around 2 to 3 years old and buried around 3350 BC. The great human fingerprint now seen in Avebury represents one type of living that brought people from outside the area. But what about their own communities? Everyday settlements also occurred in this area, one of which lay next to Windmill Hill, but these did not always leave lasting visual marks on the landscape. Being the largest stone circle in all of Europe, the circle began its life in the late Neolithic. The site was built in 2 phases. The first giving us the inner settings, potentially the inner circle and the first sign of earthworks. The second saw the construction of the main earthworks, the outer circle and the avenues. The initial construction began with 98 to around 105 massive sarsen stones. The stones here are deliberately placed for position and height and are evenly spaced apart. The stones used to build the circle are a type of silicified sandstone called sarsen. They are only found across southern England, specifically on Salisbury Plain and Marlborough Downs. The latter is where our stones were collected. Sarsen is found scattered on a field surface, making them easily harvested as no stonework was needed to create their shape. They only had to transport them around the corner, which is a big benefit for the builders. The stones here are the largest found in any stone circle and are found at the north and south entrances. The two inner circles are aligned with north and south. The southern circle has 29 smaller sarsen stones with an obelisk standing in its centre. Before it was moved in the 18th century, the obelisk stood at 6.4 metres tall. That's 3.7 Lizzies. Recent geophysics work using solid resistance survey and ground penetration radar has allowed us to see beneath the ground and identify long-lost structures. The survey identified a missing squircle that spanned 30 metres enclosing the obelisk. Finding megalithic circles in the late Neolithic is somewhat common, but a square circle is highly unusual, making the site even more impressive and important. The northern circle used to contain 27 sarsen stones. This makes the northern circle slightly smaller than the southern. From these stones, 6 now remain, with 2 having fallen. Inside the circle was a smaller triangle, known as the cove. From the 3 stones, the 2 now remaining are the largest stones found at the site, with the 3rd having fallen and later removed in the 18th century. You may have noticed, but surrounding the stones is a massive henge. The henge now stands around 4 to 5 metres tall, but used to stand 17 metres, with the ditch being 9 metres deep. Can you imagine about how much time that would have taken to create? And then think about they were digging it with antler pickaxes. The henge was constructed with the chalk and would have been a major contrast of white against this green landscape, unlike anything someone from the Neolithic could have imagined. Approaching the site after hearing whispers would have been unimaginable and incredibly daunting. This is definitely a statement-worthy place. I wouldn't want to mess with the communities who could build something like this. Many people have occupied this land throughout history, but unlike today, they did not have the same consideration or understanding for the stones. Sadly, many stones have been lost throughout time. To create more space, in the medieval period, many stones were destroyed and buried. These are now indicated using concrete posts. Excavations throughout history have found burnt sarsen in place of the stones. This has led archaeologists to decipher that the stones were probably destroyed by creating a fire at the bottom of the stones and heating it up and then hitting it with a rock, causing the stone to shatter. In the medieval period, they built a village right bang in the centre of the stone circle. In fact, many stones were used to build the village foundations. A church built just east of the circle was even mentioned in the Domesday Book as Avebury. Later, the village became bigger, leading to the construction of the manor house and the surrounding homes. It is now home to the only circle with a pub in the centre. Avebury must have been a significant site to the Neolithic people to spare every free moment that they had on construction. The site in total covers 28.5 acres. Safe to say it wasn't completed in someone's lunch break, but in fact it was generations of work. Avebury's construction is one of the most labour-intensive Neolithic monuments to have been built in Britain. Still to this day, Avebury gathers people in their masses to witness the summer and winter solstice. The sanctuary was once both a timber and a stone circle, which was believed to have been constructed around 2500 BC. Although the site isn't there today, we know that it was still around in the 17th century, as scholars wrote about it, saying that the locals called the circle the sanctuary. The site was then destroyed in the 18th century to create more agricultural land. It was only then rediscovered in the 1930s through excavation. These found that there were 2 stone circles made up of 58 sarsen stones and 5 timber circles made up of 62 posts. Today, the structure's position is shown through concrete posts, blue indicating the stones and red indicating the wooden posts. Silbury Hill is a man-made hill that amazes every person who sees it. Standing at 30 metres high and around 160 metres wide, this chalk structure is the pinnacle of mathematics and construction. Scientists have calculated that it probably took around 4 million man-hours and 500,000 tonnes of material to build this structure. But who built it? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Analysis done on the hill shows that it started construction around 2400 BC. This is after the Neolithic and actually at the beginning of the Bronze Age. The fact that the Bronze Age people also constructed monuments in this landscape isn't unique to Avebury and actually has occurred in other important landscapes. It appears that these migrating groups appreciated the importance of these landscapes and decided to add to them themselves. The first structure the Bronze Age people decided to build here was Silbury Hill. The original structure built here was made from the surrounding soil and stones and would have stood around 1 metre high. Next, they used a ring of stakes to infill a 16-metre diameter circle. This continued until the mound stood at 5 metres tall and 35 metres wide. They then cut an enclosing ring of ditches to surround the mound that stood at 100 metres wide with an inner chalk bank. This monument could not have been built over one generation. It would have taken multiple to bring the quantity of chalk from the surrounding lands. The latest addition to the site was the water-filled ditch. To understand how the structure was built, archaeologists have dug holes straight into the centre. Other similar hills have gleamed magnificent burials within the centre, but sadly this was not the case at Silbury Hill. But I believe the significance of this site is held within the mathematics. You see, when creating a mound, there is a natural angle that the structure can be stable at before it falls down the edge. Silbury Hill lies at the maximum angle, which is 30 degrees, making this structure a one of a kind, with its purpose unknown. Around 2400 to 2200 BC, 2 avenues were constructed. The avenue was constructed of around 100 pairs of sarsen stones, 25 metres wide and about 2.5 kilometres long. It's believed to have been constructed to connect the sanctuary to the circle. Digs dug here have shown that there were actual beaker burials under some of our stones. Beckhampton Avenue lies west of the circle and runs 1.5 kilometres, connecting the site to the Longstone Cove at Beckhampton. Sadly, only 1 stone now remains. Excavations between 1999 and 2004 rediscovered 120 metres of the avenue and found it was also constructed of 2 parallel lines that stood 15 metres apart. The landscape of Avebury, still to this day, brings people to connect them back to the earth and to appreciate the world around them. The magnitude of all of these structures has led a lot of people to believe in the extraordinary being the cause. After 5 dig seasons, I can confirm that you can never get a signal within the circle, and the weather prediction for this place is never correct. Although the main construction of Avebury is within the late Neolithic, the construction at this site started within the early into the Bronze Age. The immense manpower and time needed to build all of these structures shows that there was a lot of love for this landscape. We may never know exactly why these structures were built, but I'm glad that it was not in vain and that they are still here for us to enjoy today. My fun fact this week is that one of the most famous henges is not actually a henge. Yes, that's right, Stonehenge isn't a proper henge, as the ditch is on the outside and the bank is standing on the inside. For it to be classified as a henge, it has to be the other way round. This feature is the oldest of the site and is called a proto-henge, with later constructions favouring the layout we see at Avebury.